Hi, everyone. Hope you all are keeping well in these changing times. We are all set for yet another exciting conversation today. I know most of you have been following this series religiously, and for the ones who are absolutely new, this is about getting the most sought after voices from the industry and for the industry. So, one of those initiatives that talks about the leaders who are really making an impact. Today, we have a special guest joining us, and please join me in welcoming her, Ruhie Pande, CHRO, Godrej Housing Finance, and Godrej Fund Management. Welcome, Ruhie.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Saumya, for having me over and look forward to
Yes,
chatting with you.
absolutely. Super excited for that. And yes, I will take a moment, everyone, to introduce Ruhi to you. Ruhi is a seasoned HR professional who is passionate about coaching, leading HR transformation strategy, and diversity. She brings with her 2 decades of exceptional experience of building and enabling engaged and capable people power across a diverse set of industries. In her career in human resources, she's worked with some of the best companies in India across myriad sectors like financial services, real estate, fashion, retail, information technology, and FMCG. She moved to her current stint at the financial service business of Godrej as employee one and has been instrumental in handpicking and onboarding the CXO or the co-founder team, and now is working on the key levers of the people strategy to enable best in class financial institution. She truly is a leader on mission. So welcome, Ruhi, once again. Absolutely pleasure to get on this conversation with you. And I'm going to get started with the first question that really comes to my mind. Would love to hear from you a brief overview of the disruption and transformation in your industry.
Right. Uh, I think if you look at it, Saumya, there have been so many disruptions and transformations in the last few years. A lot of them are purely driven by the technological advancements, changes in consumer behavior and consumer patterns. The sheer fact that the pandemic stuck and people's habits changed so much. And one of the biggest disruptions I have observed over the last a few years, is this entire debate about how digital has impacted businesses. And more importantly, I'm going to talk about my field, which is human resources. So the debate that whether HR is a science or an art continues in many circles. And I have seen that it's kind of coming more and more to life of late in the last few years. Now, the impact is felt across various facets of HR, making decision making easier, making the lives of multiple HR professionals far more streamlined. We start with things like talent acquisition. So, gone are the days when recruiters had to sift through myriads of paperwork. Now you've got artificial intelligence, which sits on multiple social media platforms and picks up profiles which are most relevant to yours. Employers work a lot on showcasing their brand. In fact, just before that, we were having a conversation on employer branding. And people are very keen to know these days, the millennials and anyone who's joining the workforce is very keen to know, what is it that a day in my life at my employer would look like? And thereby, companies are using multiple platforms like Clubhouse, LinkedIn, social media to showcase not just a value proposition, but their leaders. So, that's kind of one. I also feel that artificial intelligence takes the bias out of hiring. So it also talks back to your diversity and inclusion strategy. That's one part. The second part is the entire way performance management was done. People's attention spans are not very long, so no one wants to fill long forms. People want instant feedback. People want the ability to change goals frequently, simplified forms. So performance management is changing. Gone are the days of the large ballroom set up once in a year of reward and recognition. People want instant gratification, a pat on the back, peer recognition, and many platforms on R&R are coming into the fray. In fact, we have just launched a platform. Our company is very young. The average age is low. So we recently launched a reward and recognition platform, which emulates the way a traditional reward platform would look like, but it's virtual. So it creates that environment, but it's at the end of the day virtual, because that's here to stay. Also, people want differentiation in the way you actually give them rewards. So they want democratic platforms from things like, employees coming and asking us that, can we knit the CSR as well as our rewards? Can I, instead of giving me a voucher, can you just plant a tree on my behalf? And we've started doing that. People want fitness, people want learning programs, people want books, ebooks as recognition. So that's one more thing. Last but not the least, I think it is so great that you have artificial intelligence in the employee experience. So platforms which we've just launched something called Amber. It's an artificial intelligence which checks on an employee's well-being from the time the individual joins to whenever you want that person to be. And I think employees are far more comfortable talking to AI than they were earlier. It brings the objectivity, it takes out judgment, it takes out any bias, and it creates an data in a very meaningful way and highlights, if there are challenges in particular pockets, it gets highlighted to me directly. And the most important change in the entire industry is on learning. E-learning has totally changed the way learning used to operate, and more so with the way we are now working. How is it that managers are going to review? How will people get trained? With attention spans going down because you're finally talking digitally. How will gamification play a role? How will you look at your organization strategy, business performance, and individual capability? And now the great thing is that there are platforms which can throw up that analytics dashboard in front of you, saying, okay, you have a problem in a product, and in that a product, here are 6 people who need training. So then you tailor make so it's now truly become learning management. It's no more training. So I think these are the changes in the industry.
I think very, very to the point perspective, Ruhi. Thank you so much for putting that out so honestly. And I believe that's such a good thing to say, that it is about learning management now. It's no longer the training part. We've taken that journey. Yeah. So that is good to know. Thank you so much for that. The next question brings me about how has your hiring strategy changed concerning and probably when I say concerning, it means in the areas of sourcing, selection, and pipeline management post the pandemic? I'm sure there has been a lot of change that has come through.
Yeah, so absolutely, for a company like ours, which launched in the midst of the pandemic, we pretty much onboarded 2/3 of our entire workforce while the pandemic was there. And I think over, 70-80% of our hiring would have been done virtually post that as well. So, I would say that for any hiring strategy, for any sourcing strategy, the first thing an HR team or a leadership team would really need to look at is, how are you looking at your talent? And again, talking back to your business strategy, that are you going to be a fintech? Are you going to be a brick and mortar player? I'm talking about the BFSI industry, but every industry would have its own nuances. And then in that case, what kind of talent do you need? In that talent, are you really looking at everyone with the same model of engagement, which is that everyone's an employee, they come into work. Now that, with the work from home, with the work from anywhere concept, with more and more millennials being totally open to the Uberized way of working, what kind of talent strategy would you really be looking at? And if you know what kind of talent what's your talent strategy, then you would say, okay, how many from campus? What's going to be your pipeline creation? So build versus buy. Where would you go outside for hiring laterally? Where would you say, okay, I'm going to build these people? That's going to be one part of it. And then once you've understood that, build versus buy, and again, build would also have not just campus, it will also have your own succession, your own internal talent pipeline. How will you groom your leaders internally? Once all that is very clear, then you would understand that then where am I going to find these people? And for us, a lot, and I think also for a lot more new industries where I'm listening to it, a lot is digitally. You need to have presence across multiple platforms where you can showcase your employer brand, you can put out your jobs. The way we were doing job descriptions itself has changed. No one wants to go through those, 5-6 pagers of, oh, you need this skill, I need Java, I need, you need to be a recruiter, because people are so much more flexible about the change of industries. People are so much more flexible about hiring people, not just from a different function, but also from a different industries. The job descriptions have changed, but how democratic can you make them? How much interesting can you make the way you are looking at your recruitment process? Can you gamify a bit of it? Does everything need to be interview based? Can you gamify some part of it? And with all that in mind, then you look at platforms where you can reach out to your prospective your target audience. Who are you trying to reach? So that's the entire piece around sourcing. The second thing we have consciously done is to really create teams which are lean, and we've said that why only look at meaningful and meaty roles up above in the hierarchies? How can you more and more empower your frontline? So we're like very totally saying that empowered roles down, as down as possible, closest to the customer. So create meaningful roles in the structure across. And that I think really appeals to people, that my role is empowered. I can take decisions. Every day I go out there fully knowing that whatever I need to succeed, the autonomy is in my hands. So that truly and totally appeals. And then kind of somewhere or the other, and communicating that to people. That's number one. For example, in the current scheme of things, our frontline roles are all empowered. Our relationship managers know exactly what they need to do. So that's something which can be meaningfully constructed and communicated. And the second thing, we were discussing, if you're really going to go to campus, then which campuses do you need to reach out? What's kind of going to be your campus outreach program? Campus also weaves in very beautifully to your diversity and inclusion story. Just to give you a small example, in our industry, we don't find very many women in sales. It's an industry traditionally, which is in any case which is very male dominated across all clients, but definitely in sales, it's a bit of a challenge. So then if you are committed to creating gender diversity at your workplace, then you will have to have a very robust campus program. So that's that. And I think having events where you can demystify what you stand for on platforms like Clubhouse, talking to people like you, when I'm talking to you, you're going to go out and reach people, being available on social media, building your hiring managers as brand ambassadors. So your line leaders, how much can they post jobs? As simple as that. And I've found that it's so much more interesting for people. When people come to us for jobs, they want to know who are they going to work with. When I'm hiring for people in the HR team, they actually check out my profile. They see, okay, what have I written? And they'll give me very interesting comments that, you wrote that article, but I don't agree with you. It's great, because they really want to know who are the living and breathing individuals who are going to make meaning to my life. They want to know what your brand purpose is. So communicating that, making your leaders media savvy, making your leaders write, talk to people, all those I think would be more and more going ahead sourcing strategy, not just, getting your recruiters to go out there and put advertisements.
I think that was fantastic. Thank you so much, Ruhie. And it was so relatable, I think. There has been a shift, a very significant shift that has come. I think it is no way like a one-way process, that if I am a job seeker, I have to be there. In fact, now companies are doing, very wacky things to kind of attract the best of the talents. So it has, in a way, become a two-way street. And thank you so much for putting out that in such a beautiful way. I really loved it. And now it just kind of takes me to the third question around it. How exactly do you redefine an employer brand? And you've been talking about it, and I think you guys are already on road to that. So how exactly are you going to, say that redefining an employer brand to attract hybrid talent in a virtual context? And I think that is one of the things that's already there.
Yeah, I think that's a very important part, and it's very real. What people look at. So when we talk about social media, and especially when I talk to a lot of leaders, I talk to my team, and sometimes even in my own thought process, whenever we talk about social media, somehow or the other, what comes to mind or what comes to people's mind is, okay, you're going to put up stuff about the company to build image. It's going to be snazzy. It will be stuff which has to be visually appealing. It needs to look attractive so that, it hooks on people the moment they see it. All that is okay. But like I was telling you, that what people want to know is the real stuff. In fact, the other day, I remember, we put out some really nice, wacky stuff. We wanted to hire some people to do copywriting. And we put out some stuff like, a word game to say it was a very wacky thing, and a lot of people, it grabbed eyeballs, but someone wrote back to us saying, this is really nice, but can you tell me who are the people working in the marketing team? I want to know who they are. What do they think? What's your marketing strategy? What's the brand purpose? So I think when you redefine your employer brand, you need to talk about all these things. So if you're trying to attract workforce which is nimble and agile, you will need to talk about, you need to showcase those people, that here are people who are Uberized with us, and here's their story. This is the real thing. This is XYZ in the recruitment team. Here's where she comes from, and this is what she does on a day-to-day basis. Here are my hiring managers. Here's what they do. So when you're hiring for the IT team, they definitely want to know who's your CTO. Our CTO is a stalwart from the industry. It's a she. So when you're trying to hire gender diversity, you need to showcase your women leaders and ask them to talk about stories which are very attractive, but also the challenges they face when they come into work every day. How did they balance their work life when they had children? What is it that someone who's joined you as a part of the flexible workforce, what is it that they do? How flexible are they? So these are the real stories which people want, and it has to be consistent. People look for consistency. People look for honesty, and it's good that you go out there and say. So the platforms are definitely important. You need to understand where your target audience is. If they're on Clubhouse, you need to be on Clubhouse and have open conversations. They're on LinkedIn, you need to be there. If they're on Instagram, you better be there as well. So digitally savvy, confident leaders who can speak their mind. And when I say speak their mind, I'm not talking about people who are articulate. You can be an introvert and communicate your ideas really well through writing. It's all about authenticity. During the pandemic, I've seen people really value authentic conversations. They want honesty. And of course, last but not the least, in the virtual context, testimonials, videos, smaller bites, stuff which, kind of tells people about your brand. And most importantly, I've seen somewhere or the other, the recruiters have to be your brand ambassadors. It's like, when you go to a retail store or a hotel, the person who serves you is the person who creates the impression of the brand, not the ads they put. So I'm interacting with the recruiter. What's the story? So spend disproportionate amount of time training your recruiters, training your hiring managers on communicating that brand, because every single person you're interviewing is also your brand ambassador. They will go and tell 10 people about the experience. So create great experiences, invest in these people, invest in these platforms, and be very authentic about the story you're giving out.
Thank you for that, Ruhie. And I think that is so honest of you to put it out in such a, I would say, well articulated, like we said. And it's such an important thought to realize for brands these days. I mean, I love that example that you mentioned, that you can go to a restaurant and it's not about the ads that they're putting out, or it's not all about it. It's actually about the guy who's going to serve you on your table. So that is the kind of brand connect that we need to have. That's amazing. And now that actually kind of transcends me into the other part of this conversation, Ruhie, where we talk about that what exactly are the skill sets. Now, I just want to kind of go a little deeper on that. Yeah. That what kind of skills do you look for, while you're hiring across the functions? Is it like only technical skills, soft skills, behavioral skills? Or if there is a conflict or a combination that you look at? So would be great if you could just share some thoughts around that.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Saumya. Thank you for asking that question. I think that entire dynamic of what people look at when they are hiring has also shifted a lot. I truly today see, I'm just going to give you my example. I have never repeated the same industry. I've been in HR for, 15 plus odd years, but I just find it very challenging and different that every time you change an industry, you get to understand something so different. So, I worked in FMCG, information technology, fashion apparel, real estate, and now with financial services. So I just feel people are so much more open. At one point of time, they would say that, no, if you've done one sector, even in industry or agnostic functions like HR, they would not be very open. But I see people open, not just here, but across the value chain. So definitely you need for functional, you would want to understand the functional expertise, especially in functions like risk, in functions like technology, analytics. There has to be an educational background. People have to be chartered accountants, or people have to be masters in analytics, or whichever. So that's a given. After that, I would say that it's a strategic, strategic journey of the organization. So you look at some cultural fits there, depending on what the organization strategy is. For us, very clearly, we look for that founder's mindset. We look for something we call as, being entrepreneurial. So are you someone who can get your hands dirty? We're a fast moving company. We're going to grow very fast. When we were hiring the top team, we looked at something called a co-founder mindset. Are you collaborative by nature? Because we always say that it's truly not a win unless it's a team win if you're a co-founder. So we looked at the co-founder mindset when we were hiring for the top team. When we hire for people down the line, we look at things like how collaborative you are. Are you a team worker? Do you have the entrepreneurial ability? Are you agile? Today's world, Saumya, is so ambiguous that there are no answers out there. When the pandemic struck us, I remember people were coming and asking us at the HR team, okay, what are we supposed to do? We didn't have any answers either, but you had to adapt. So your ability to handle ambiguity, how adaptable you are, how agile you are. So I think those are certain skills we look at. I also think that those are skills which across the board people are looking at. The other thing we look specifically in senior to top management is what you call as the ability to zoom in and zoom out. Because earlier there was this entire mindset that the senior management, the CHRO will only do strategy. That's all gone. That's all bunkum. Because now you need to be, like we say, in the balcony, strategizing, and in the dance, executing all the time, same day. Gone are the days when you'd say, okay, I'm going to make a structure for 3 years and then I'll go and execute it. Your structures may change every year because God knows what's going to happen. How will the environment change? So your ability to adapt, zoom in and zoom out is so much more important. The technology skills we've spoken about, we look at digital savviness because we are going to be a digital forward company. We look at people who have an analytical mindset. We look at people who have the nimbleness and what we call as the learning agility. You don't have all the answers. You may not have done everything we want you to do as a part of the job description, but you are agile, you can learn. So that's another thing we look at. And I think the most important thing is for organizations to hire for potential. You may not have done everything my job description wants. It's all right. But do you have the potential to learn? You have the educational background. You have the potential to learn. You have the hunger to learn. You are ambitious. You have the hunger to learn. You have the humility to say, I've failed. I don't know this. Please teach me. These are broadly what we are looking at.
I think that's absolutely a brand new perspective. Thank you so much for sharing it again. Like I'm saying, Ruhie, I think that is something so important. And it is something that all the leaders really need to kind of resonate with and actually practice. Because like you said, in the last 15 months, the world is a very different place. We've seen the transition and we don't have answers. Maybe even now we feel that we are in charge of the situation and we can probably take charge of the course. I don't feel that is the case because you don't know what's coming tomorrow. So just being agile, just being firm for the quarters unknown, I think that should be a strategy. And very, very truly said. That also kind of, I'm just thinking aloud here, Ruhie, that you mentioned a closing point here that you would rather hire and hone for potential as compared to a traditional model around it. And that just kind of really, I want to kind of go one level deeper in this and understand that, how does this function? Because hire for potential rather than just kind of ticking in the box on a traditional box, of education or experience. How does this entire equation comes together?
Sure.
So
yeah,
just
I'll give you some examples. So usually, you'd have job descriptions and you'd say, okay, hypothetically, let's assume we say that I want to hire a learning and organization development lead in my team. And you'd go out there trying to recruit someone. And then you'll say, okay, this person, the specifications say that this person should have been a L&D head of some organization. Of course, my scale might be higher, but the person should have performed that role for 2 to 3 years. Now, that's how traditionally one would function. And that brings it with itself immense amount of experience. The person knows the job. The person has done it and thereby, the need for me as a supervisor to coach or really handhold goes down to a little level. But it also then somewhere or the other comes in the way of giving people opportunities when they haven't done something. So when you're hiring for potential, you're basically taking a punt on people who are not really there, who haven't performed that role maybe a rung lower, but have the hunger to learn, have the qualifications, of course. I mean, you finally would look at some base level qualifications, and who have, in your opinion, the ability to learn and adapt to the environment. Because that brings with itself 2-3 things. And again, that's a talent strategy the organization needs to look at. In some roles, you may look at people who have been there, done that. But in some roles, you may say, okay, I want to take a punt on talent which hasn't done it. What it does is that it brings innovation. It brings people into the fray who haven't really done it. They may need a little bit more hand-holding and coaching, but are ambitious and bring their A game to work every day because they're learning it. They are so hungry to learn that. So that's what it does. Third, it gives you a different perspective. You may not have thought of the problem in that way. Oftentimes, I think that, the youngsters in your team, and when I'm saying young, I don't mean young only by age. I mean young by thought. You could be older by age and young totally by the way you think. You would look at a problem very differently. And that's actually cognitive diversity. They will give you solutions to a problem which you might not have thought of at all. You may be looking at the problem in itself as the problem. They may totally shatter your own beliefs and say, okay, you're just playing in the wrong field. Just change your direction. And there's how you may look at this, evaluating this problem. But also, just a few days back, I was having a chat with my team about retention, and one of my team members, bright young girl who's just come in from different industries, said, why don't you look at learning programs as a mean to retain people? Why don't you look at careers as a mean to retain people? Does it only have to be what everyone else is doing? And can you actually do what everyone else is doing? You are not going to beat people at their own game. So these are some of the ideas which these people get. So that's what I meant by potential.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think there's a lot of clarity that you've given to us, a lot of hope, I would say, and also for making us aware that, there are things that are changing so constantly and you have to just kind of grow with it. Yeah. So it might be, kind of just changing your entire brand, or probably just retraining your employees, or kind of just taking everything in that stride is very, very important in these times. So thank you so much for that, Ruhie. I think it was an absolute delight to kind of get on with this conversation. And yes, everyone, this actually does bring us to the end of the conversation. I would love to thank Ruhie once again for sharing her amazing insights and the absolute candor that she carried. I really enjoyed every bit of this conversation, and I hope you all resonated with what I shared and you also found value in that. So thank you so much once again. We're going to be back with another exciting conversation next week. Till then, please stay safe and have a great time ahead. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Saumya, for having me. Bye, everyone. Bye, all.